Good Cheer, God's Medicine, by Orison Swett Marden. Chapter from Peace, Power, and Plenty. Mirth is God's medicine. Everybody ought to bathe in it. Grim care, moroseness, anxiety, all the rust of life ought to be scoured off by the oil of mirth. Oliver Wendell Holmes. Talk happiness. The world is sad enough without your woe. A woman in California who, because of crushing sorrow, had fallen a victim to despondency, insomnia, and kindred ills, determined to throw off the gloom which was making life so heavy a burden to her, and established a rule that she would laugh at least 3 times a day, whether occasion presented or not. Accordingly, she trained herself to laugh heartily at the least provocation, and would retire to her room and make merry by herself. She was soon in excellent health and buoyant spirits, and her home became a sunny, cheerful abode. If people only knew the medicinal power of laughter, of good cheer, of the constant unrepressed expression of joy and gladness, half the physicians would be out of work. Did not Lycurgus set up the god of laughter in the Spartan eating halls, because he thought there was no sauce like laughter at meals? Laughter is undoubtedly one of nature's greatest tonics. It brings the disordered faculties and functions into harmony. It lubricates the mental bearings and prevents the friction which monotonous, exacting business engenders. It is a divine gift bestowed upon us as a life preserver, a health promoter, a joy generator, a success maker. Laughter, like an air cushion, eases you over the jolts and the hard places on life's highway. Laughter is always healthy. It tends to bring every abnormal condition back to the normal. It is a panacea for heartaches, for life's bruises. It is a life prolonger. People who keep themselves in physical and mental harmony through hearty laughter are likely to live longer than those who take life too seriously. In order to become normal, the natural fun-loving forces within us must be released. Laughter is one form of exercise which sets them free, rescues men from the blues. Somewhere I have read of a man whose laughing muscles were so paralyzed that his laughter sounded like a voice from the tombs. American life is so serious that many men lose their power to laugh. They can force a little sepulchral chuckle, but the genuine side-shaking laughter is almost a stranger to their experience. They are in such a serious chase after the dollar. Their life is so strenuous, so given to scheming and planning, that they do not have much time to laugh. They do not know the medicinal value there is in the habit of laughter, how it clears the cobwebs out of the brain, disposes of the fangs of worry and anxiety and business pressure, takes the mind off the grind of things, removes friction, and helps to make life worthwhile. To people who have lost the laughing habit, I would say, lock yourself in your room and practice smiling. Smile at your pictures, furniture, looking glass, anything, just so the stiff muscles are brought into play again. In a corner of his desk, Lincoln kept a copy of the latest humorous work, and it was his habit when fatigued, annoyed, or depressed to take this up and read a chapter for relief. Humor, whether clean, sensible wit, or sheer nonsense, whatever provokes mirth and makes a man jollier, is a gift from heaven. Laughter is a very important element in a successful career. Many a man who could have been a success sleeps in a failure's grave today because he took life too seriously. He poisoned the atmosphere about him so that it became unhealthy and paralyzed his own powers. We often hear people, especially delicate women who have nervous dyspepsia, say they do not understand how it is that they can go out to late suppers or banquets and eat heartily all sorts of incongruous food without feeling any inconvenience afterward. They do not realize that it is due to the change in the mental attitude. They have had a good time, they have enjoyed themselves. The lively conversation, the jokes which caused them to laugh heartily, the bright, cheerful environment, completely changed their mental attitude, and of course these conditions were reflected in the digestion and every other part of the system. For laughter and good cheer are enemies of dyspepsia. Anything which will divert the dyspeptic's mind from his ailments will improve his digestion. When they were at home worrying over their health, swallowing a little dyspepsia with every mouthful of food, of course, these women could not assimilate what they ate. But when they were having a jolly good time, they forgot their ailments, and were surprised afterward to find that they had enjoyed their food and that it did not hurt them. The whole process is mental. Use the laugh cure, the fun cure, in the home. Throw away the drugs and save doctors' bills. The power of cheerfulness to do good, says Dr. Sanderson, is not an artificial stimulus of the tissues, to be followed by reaction and greater waste, as is the case with many drugs. But the effect of cheerfulness is an actual life-giving influence throughout a normal channel, the results of which reach every part of the system. It brightens the eye, makes ruddy the countenance, brings elasticity to the step, and promotes all the inner force by which life is sustained. The blood circulates more freely, the oxygen comes to its home in the tissues, health is promoted and disease is banished. There is no drug which can compete with cheerfulness. A jolly, whole-hearted, sunny physician is worth more than all the remedies in an apothecary shop. What magic we often see wrought by the arrival of the physician, especially when the patient is frightened and nervous. Discouragement, the hopeless expression, are driven away by his reassuring, confident smile, and many times even severe pain is relieved by his mental uplift and encouragement. How eagerly the patient watches the doctor's face for a ray of hope. No drug could work such magic as does that one encouraging look. A friend remembers how, as a boy, when the old family physician used to come to the home so full of life and joy and gladness, with sunshine beaming from every pore, members of the family would feel absolutely ashamed to be sick, ashamed to think that God's work, which was made perfect, should need patching up. The whole atmosphere of the house, he said, seemed to change the minute the doctor entered. His hearty laugh, ringing through the rooms, as he rubbed his hands before the fire on a cold winter day, and his mere presence, did us more good than pills or potions. Somehow, the very thought of his coming after we had sent for him seemed to drive away our troubles. One of the most successful physicians in Boston gives very little medicine. His merry face and cheerful disposition take the sting out of pain. He replaces despair with hope, discouragement with confidence, and a cheerful reassurance, so that the sick feel a decided uplift in his presence and are filled with a stronger determination to get well. Too many of us dry up and become stale, uninteresting, and abnormal from lack of the development of the cheerful habit. There is no one thing which will do so much for the life, for health, for happiness, as the cultivation of the cheerful habit, the habit of flinging out one's joy and gladness everywhere, radiating good cheer. The constantly increasing success of the vaudeville playhouses and other places of amusement all over this country shows the tremendous demand in the human economy for fun. Most people do not appreciate that this demand must be met in some form, or the character will be warped and defective. What a complete revolution in your whole physical and mental being takes place after seeing a really funny play. You went to the play, tired, jaded, worn out, discouraged. All your mental faculties were clogged with brain ash. You could not think clearly. When you came home, you were a new being. A businessman, on returning home after a perplexing, exasperating, exhausting day's work, may experience the same thing. Romping and playing with the children, spending a jolly evening with his family or friends, telling stories and cracking jokes, rest his jaded nerves and restore him to his normal condition. I have been as much refreshed by good, hearty laugh, by listening to wholesome stories and jokes, by spending an evening with friends and having a good time, as by a long, sound night's sleep, and look back upon such experiences as little vacations. Anything that will make a man new, that will clear the cobwebs of discouragement from his brain and drive away fear, care, and worry, is of practical value. We should not look upon fun and humor as transitory things, but as solid, lasting, permanent medicinal influences on the whole character. Why should not having a good a time form a part of our daily program? Why should not this enter into our great life plan? Why should we be serious and gloomy because we have to work for a living? There is a moral as well as healing influence in things which amuse and make us enjoy life. No one was ever spoiled by good humor, but tens of thousands have been made better by it. Fun is a food as necessary to the wholeness of man as bread. Who can estimate the good our great humorists have done the world in helping to drive away care and sorrow, in lightening burdens, in taking drudgery out of dreary occupations, in cheering the discouraged and the lonely? A writer known for his cheerful sayings received a letter from a lady stating that one of his humorous poems had saved her life. Anyone who has brought relief to distressed souls, who has lifted the burden from saddened, sorrowing hearts, has done as much good as any of those who have been civilization builders. Few of us really understand the full value of good cheer and laughter as physiological and psychological factors. An eminent French surgeon says that we ought to train children to habits of mirth. Encourage your child to be merry and laugh aloud, he says. A good hearty laugh expands the chest and makes the blood bound merrily along. Commend me to a good laugh, not to a little snickering laugh, but to one that will sound right through the house. We realize that it is very necessary to train the mind in business principles, to train certain faculties to do special things, but do not seem to think it necessary to cultivate the habit of cheerfulness. Yet not even an education is as necessary to the child as the formation of the cheerful habit. This ought to be regarded as the first essential of the preparation for life, the training of the mind toward sunshine, the developing of every possibility of the cheerful faculties. The first duty we owe a child is to teach it to fling out its inborn gladness and joy with the same freedom and abandon as the bobolink does when it makes the meadow joyous with its song. Suppression of the fun-loving nature of a child means the suppression of its mental and moral faculties. Joy will go out of the heart of a child after a while, if it is continually suppressed. Mothers who are constantly cautioning the little ones not to do this or not to do that, telling them not to laugh or make a noise until they lose their naturalness and become little old men and women, do not realize the harm they are doing. An eminent writer says, "Children without hilarity will never amount to much. Trees without blossoms will never bear fruit." There is an irrepressible longing for amusement, for rollicking fun in young people, and if these longings were more fully met in the home, it would not be so difficult to keep the boy and girl under the parental roof. I always think there is something wrong when the father or the children are so very uneasy to get out of the house at night and to go off somewhere where they will have a good time. A happy, joyous home is a powerful magnet to child and man. The sacred memory of it has kept many a person from losing his self-respect and from the commission of crime. Fun is the cheapest and best medicine in the world for your children as well as for yourself. Give it to them in good large doses. It will not only save you doctors' bills, but it will also help to make your children happier and will improve their chances in life. We should not need half so many prisons, insane asylums, and almshouses if all children had a happy childhood. The very fact that the instinct to play, the love of fun, is so imperious in the child, shows a great necessity in its nature, which, if suppressed, will leave a famine in its life. A sunny, joyous, happy childhood is to the individual what a rich soil and genial sun are to the young plant. If the early conditions are not favorable, the plant becomes starved and stunted, and the results cannot be corrected in the later trees. It is now or never with the plant. This is true with the human plant. A starved, suppressed, stunted childhood makes a dwarfed man. A joyful, happy, fun-loving environment develops powers, resources, and possibilities which would remain dormant in a cold, dull, repressing environment. How many lives are blank, dry, as uninteresting as a desert, because cheerfulness was crushed out of the child life, because the joys of childhood were never developed. Their young lives were suppressed, and all that was sweet and juicy crushed out of them in their early years. Everywhere we see men and women discontented and unhappy because of the lack of play in their early life. When the young clay finally hardened, it was unable to respond to a joyful environment. Happy recreation has a very subtle influence upon the mental faculties, which are emphasized and heightened by it. How our courage is strengthened, our determination, our ambition, our whole outlook on life changed by it. There seems to be a subtle fluid from humor and fun which penetrates the entire being, bathes all the mental faculties, and washes out the brain ash and debris from exhausted cerebrum and muscles. We have all experienced the transforming, refreshing, rejuvenating power of good, wholesome fun. Many people make anything like joy or happiness impossible by dwelling upon the disagreeable, the unfortunate, unlucky things of life. They always see the ugly, the crooked, the wrong side of things. I once lived in a clergyman's family where I scarcely heard a person laugh in months. It seemed to be a part of the inmates' religion to wear long faces and to be sober-minded and solemn. They did not have much use for this world. They seemed to be living for the world to come. And whenever the minister heard me laugh, he would remind me that I had better be thinking of my latter end and preparing for the death which might come at any moment. Laughter was considered frivolous and worldly, and as for playing in the house, it would not be tolerated for an instant. Melancholy, solemnity, used to be regarded as a sign of spirituality, but it is now looked upon as the imprint of a morbid mind. There is no religion in it. True religion is full of hope, sunshine, optimism, and cheerfulness. It is joyous and glad and beautiful. There is no Christianity in the ugly, the discordant, the gad. The religion which Christ taught was bright and beautiful. The sunshine, the lilies of the field, the birds of the air, the hills, the valleys, the trees, the mountains, the brooks, all things beautiful, were in his teaching. There was no cold, dry theology in it. It was just happy Christianity. Cheerfulness is one of the great miracle workers of the world. It reinforces the whole man, doubles and trebles his power, and gives new meaning to his life. No man is a failure until he has lost his cheerfulness, his optimistic outlook. The man who does his best and carries a smiling face and keeps cheerful in the midst of discouragements, when things go wrong and the way is dark and doubtful, is sure to win. "Laugh until I come back," was a noted clergyman's goodbye salutation. It is a good one for us all,